none of this is quite brand new, and that horror isn't seated in shock the way you might expect like a brand new circle to, and it just feels so good. I love the scar mechanic.
I just want to start by saying I am scared for this season of Candela, and I am so excited for it because you both are amazing. And Candela.
So you had no little peeky poos of it at all?
I have not.
Okay.
I've seen the trailer and that's it.
Okay. Hey. Goodness, what do we talk about? Oh my
Caitlin, gosh. Your fear is justified. Liam's in this season, and you know that I was just like, okay. When we're talking about like who's going to be in the cast, the moment I was told by the producers that I got Liam, I did hug fully grown men, sort of in a workplace setting that maybe was not the vibe for a professional business meeting, but everything that like all of the like tropes and expectations around, sorry, Liam, you just have to sit here while I praise you. And that's probably pretty awkward. So just, he's so good and so dramatic, and everything like inside of his like storytelling ability is perfect. Like it's perfect for Candela. So everything I hoped would happen like while having Liam at the table did. Like expectations exceeded, heartbroken, tears, snot everywhere. It's so good, and it's very scary. It's so good.
Are we going to do the pumping up right off the top?
Yeah.
Okay. Aabria is such a good friend to me now, and I always wish that we could spend more time together and play together. And she's incredibly busy, and I'm incredibly busy. So getting to get sort of chained to a table of horror for all the days we did was a real gift. And I will compliment Aabria as well and say that she exudes a competence that I can only like muster as an illusion for like 30 seconds at a time. And she seems to live there, which is really perfect at this table and this chapter of Candela for reasons that I can't talk about.
I stayed on camera because that's for me. I recorded that for me. And I'm just going to watch it now whenever I feel a little low.
Also, your hair looks very nice today, Aabria.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Hopefully you can answer my next question. Liam, can you talk to me a little bit about your character creation process and what you were excited to explore with this character that you maybe haven't with others in the past?
Samuel Riegel, multiple Emmy nom Samuel Riegel, only one-time winner. And I definitely wanted to do something to play together at this table in a way that we haven't before. And we kicked around ideas and we kind of settled on something. And then there was, in the process of Candela, we had a play test where we all kind of sat down at the table to play a practice game. And we had the option to like maybe tinker with something you had in mind for the full-on chapter, or just do anything just to get reps at bat and work with the system and learn a newer game. And I did something on a whim at that playtest, and then afterwards messaged Sam and said, all that stuff that we talked about for a couple hours, forget it. I'm doing what I did at the table. So a version of what I did at the table. Which is nice because these games can surprise us sometimes. What else can I say? It's a role very different than anything I've ever done on the Critical Role channel. He's a bit older than myself, as you can tell from the trailer. There are ties to everyone at the table. I don't know. I can't remember if this was the answer to the question. Well, one thing I love about Candela is the and I believe we just released a session 0 for Spencer's chapter, but yeah. I loved the session 0 day, and I loved sort of exploring character and story, pre-story, with the other players at the table, and being able to start the game with what felt like a simulated history already, which is really, really cool. I've never quite done it that way before, and I don't feel like I should do it any other way at this point. It was so much fun, and Aabria was an excellent steward.
Oh, thanks. I will say it was very cool walking into the character gen, because different places run their like have different sort of protocols for character gen. If you're over at D20, it usually feels a little more like a writer's room where you're like, cool, character gen, give me a pitch. And you expect like, this is going to be 2 sentences, probably insane. You're like, great, fun pitch. Absolutely not. Let's get to somewhere good. Everyone came in with such fun, clear ideas at different stages of like ripeness and doneness. And I think you'll see it when our session 0 sort of comes out after everything is released. So, you know, months and months from now, but everyone had such fun, big ideas. And then just to like talk a little bit, because the question is about like Liam's character specifically, there's something so strong about a character that isn't like not in lockstep with the group, but is grounded in the world in a way that's really important. Like the one from the world, like if we talk about like the makeup of teams and squads, there's like the like layer, like the layer of players at the table. And you're like, who here out of the people playing is going to be kind of my little lore hound and my little plot hound? And I think I feel safe saying, Jeremy, yell at me if I can't say it. But like when we talk about who the sort of plot hound and the lore hound is, it ends up being Liam's character in this really nice way. So there are a couple times where we had like a couple conversations about the lore of the world before it came out. And this was also one of my favorite things is like, yes, I'm sitting here with the book now and I love it so much. Did I hold it upside down? I did. The book is so good. I made them send me both copies because I'm just a little dweeb. But the one I actually used, like the one we were using when we were filming, was this beautiful, like it was like a spiral bound, like fresh from Kinko's copy that like we were kind of like going through. So I just remember one of my favorite memories in the like pre-production process was like a little like text talk between you and me at like 10 p.m. like a couple days before shooting, where we were just kicking over the lore that was going to be important, like the things that your character would know and all the context in the world. So like there's a little bit of a DM pet bit built in. So when we have to talk about the things that people would and wouldn't know, it wouldn't always just be coming from me. It would be coming from this like wonderful seasoned character that is very much a hub for this very cool group.
I'm the uncomfortable smiling emoji.
That's my favorite emoji.
Someone had to point out to me, I always just thought it meant like a face. And someone at some point responded, why are you uncomfortable? Why did you send the uncomfortable emoji? And I was like, is that what that is? And I thought of the 10,000 times I've used it without understanding that was the context of it. Anyway, important Candela drop for you there.
Yeah. The deep lore. Old Farron, just a bunch of emojis.
Mm-hmm. It was the language of the old time.
I love it. And then Aabria, can you talk to me a little bit about, because every chapter of Candela has explored kind of a different style of horror. Did you look at any books or movies or TV shows as inspiration for the type of horror you wanted to explore in this season?
I think there's something in the mission statement, like in the book proper. Like, yes, it gives a bunch of like very cool gas lamp horror vibes. Like there's like night circus and like a lot of the like tone things you expect. There's something about going third and my natural predilection towards limit testing. That was like, what if we push past expectations of horror? So really cool horror now asks, I think in a fun way, like, what are you as a society afraid of? And I think there is something now inside of people that like requires an eye turning inward of like, the world is bad and it's easy to see monsters in ideologies and systems that have and currently oppress. But there's also that little thing in the back of your heart that makes you wonder if you are worse than any of the monsters you've built in the world around you. And I think that very, like, that's a sort of stated thing within the book of like, how is, like, what's the, like, personal inside of horror. And I think I leaned into that for the horror vibe more than sort of pointing out a bunch of horror that I like right now. Like, yeah, very early days, I was like, cool, this is going to be my Lovecraft country. Let's go do something very, but because it's not the real world, because we're inside of the Fairelands and like all of those sort of societal context points are lifted out, and then you put in what you want and what you like are excited to deal with and engage with. For me, this was mostly like, let's pull more, like less from horror and more from like big action and adventure to get the vibe of the world going, and then always land the horror with like the monstrous self. So I think poorly answering your question, it's less of like a one-to-one or like obvious ties to horror that I currently like, and more of a like, let's pull vibes from like, it's truly closer to like the Mummy and aspects of Tears of the Kingdom, because I played a lot of that over the summer that were like lifted in, and then always turning the eye to the table, because the table is the interesting thing. Like, let's like turn the heat up under each one of these like people trying to do their best in a terrifying world, and have them constantly look and go like, what if you're the worst thing you've ever met?
I'm going to continue with the tough question.
Intelligent answer. It's so much pressure.
Can you guys tease some of the themes you were excited to explore with this?
I think what I loved about this table of people were the long-time relationships that existed between them all, and how Aabria's events sort of stretched, pulled, and prodded them with each other. So I obviously love horror, and I love watching characters be pushed to the brink in extreme circumstances. But what really pulls me in is the sort of the psychological changes that are happening, the life that's happening within the people and between the people. The worst horror movies are just when people are cardboard cutouts and they just get, their head cut off and you don't know anything about them. The ones that I love the most are where they make you feel attached to those characters, and then heartbreak for them as whatever happens pulls on their soul like taffy. Not as succinct or smart as a brief answer.
No, yours is perfect. Also, I think there's always something really easy when you're like, I'm just the GM. My whole job is to try to like just sit back and watch. Like, you sat in these like in this character, and I mean, I don't think I have anything other to say but to +1 that the relationships between the characters are so good and so, oh God, they're so fraught. Everyone did such a good job of going like, here's a good relationship, and now let's just sort of perforate it with little points of contention and things that are good. Like, everyone has a past, and no one's past is simple. And that means that like, as things get revealed, like, you not only get things where you're like, oh, this bond between characters is stronger than I thought because there was a like hidden element to it, but there's also like the revelation of weak points, and it becomes like new pressure where you're like, oh, that's them being stronger than we expected. Here's one where you're like, you've highlighted a weak point between the two. Let's see if I can figure out the right combination of stimuli to like stress and tear that. So it was just a really fun game. It's like, when you get a bunch of dog treats and you tie them in a towel and you tie in a bunch of knots and you're like, this is just enrichment. This is just me snuffling at all your relationships and trying to get all the bits out. It was great. I had a great time.
The breaks everyone.
That's the goal. Man, this game is really good at being like, you're the GM, you're the world. Here's spooky things. There's questions built in that are like, what is this character going to be concerned with? There's a little bit built into like, what is this player worried about? And you're like, there's just so many gifts. I'm going to hurt you all with all of this. Thank you. The like euphoria of the hour after session 0 is so real for DMs. You're like, this is delicious. Thank you. I'm gonna have a great time hurting your feelings for 3 sessions.
All right. I think you guys can actually answer this question. Can you talk about a little bit about how the scar aspect of the game influence your gameplay style?
One thing I love about, I can definitely talk about that. And I, a couple of minutes ago, I thought like, I just want to shout out Spencer and Rono, everyone who worked on Candela and brought like both. I was going to tackle it from like just the lore and the world building that was done for this. I took our chapter together to really, I mean, I watched Candela, from a short distance, evolving over a long time, but I hadn't really been deep in the center of it with the story building that was going on. So this was my chance, as Aabria said, to become a lore hound and figure out what everything was about. And I really am growing more and more every day to love the environment and this alternate reality that exists in the Fairlands. So shout out to them and everyone who, top to bottom, who touched it, because it is an excellent thing that's been made. Scars, back to Scars, and the game system in general. There are many games that are 100 times crunchier than this one is, and you learn a million different features and tweaks. And if you open up a D&D manual or the Cyberpunk 2077 manual, and there's like variations, you'll drown in variations on things you can learn and do. And this is much simpler, and it is really, I think, just designed to support storytelling and to like offer just enough of like randomization and unpredictability to make it that like surprised, improvised story. But it's simple enough that it gets out of the way. So that's me speaking generally about the system. But as far as scars go, like, that's not like, my life points, my mana points are gone. It really is an opportunity for evolving the story along. Now eventually you take enough scars, you're done, and you get hit game, you hit blue screen, you hit game over. But until you hit that point, it is really just like a creative, player driven way of shifting, like weakening one part of your character's story and strengthening another, and coming up with a creative reason why. And it's great story turns. It's just another great feature about the system that I'm a fan of after having jumped into the pool with it for a bit. And I wanted to follow up with another thought, but then I realized that I shouldn't say that because you haven't seen it yet. So I'm going to hold that back.
Amazing. I love scars in this. Like, yeah, let's talk about mechanics versus like what it does for story. Scars as a mechanic is so wonderful because it tells the players up top that the best you will ever be, the most pristine, the most powerful version of yourself is the least affected by this world. This game, this world, your life within the Fairlands is one of attrition. The deeper you get, the more knowledge you'll have, the more you understand, the more you will probably be successful at like solving your assignments and doing the things that you need to do for the story to go on. But you never get to be untouched. This world sullies you and it breaks you over time. And I think that's a really cool way to land the like visceralness of the horror as a player like moves through the world. Like, here's your next scar, talk to me. And I love giving players like the power to describe how the world affects them. So it's very cool that like, as a player, you pick what your scar is, you move your stats, you tell us in this like moment of like spotlight, what happened to you? How are you different now? How does it look? How does it feel? It's incredibly cool. I think a thing I am comfortable saying, and if I'm wrong, Jeremy will chase this interview with a very urgent email to you to be like, she said too much. She's the Tom Holland of this group. Strike it from the record. But I don't think it's a plot spoiler to say that like when we came into the session 0, I love offering people like a little nasty boy choice of like, hey, do you want a little bit more juice in your character, Jen? All you have to do is give me a scar for it. Everyone said yes. So there is a sense of coming into this group that like everyone has been touched by this world. No one, in the sense that like when we first see like the circle of Vassal and Vale, like Augie is fresh to this world, and we get to learn everything about Candela and about the Fairlands through a sort of unaffected youth's eyes. Like everyone's a little more weathered. Everyone's already done something in the world and in Candela, and like no one comes to this circle and this story untouched and unaffected. Everyone's already a little bit down the road. And I think that's a really cool thing that I don't know if we ever necessarily call out in the story when we start, but you can feel it in the way everyone reacts to phenomena and like how they move and think through the world. Like none of this is quite brand new, and that horror isn't seated in shock the way you might expect like a brand new circle to, and it just feels so good. I love the scar mechanic.
Taking the scar was a no-brainer for me because, spoilers, my character is older than 25, so he's been around.
He's been around for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And now that the core rulebook is out, we've gotten to see a little bit more about the lore and about the world of the Fairelands. Can you maybe tell me what is one of your favorite details about the lore that you were excited to explore in this?
Without spoiling anything about this season, there is a lot of like GM lift is get to know the world, figure out like what does your brain alight on, and like kind of dig in on it. Again, as a sort of self-professed limit tester, I love the edges of things. I love where like stability and the thing that is built sort of falls away at an edge that abuts something else. And I think the like world and the map of the Fairelands is really, really fun and cool around the edges. And there's something very, very dope that Spencer and Rowan did with the way the world is built that I'm not saying anything you can't see if you just go read the book, go buy the book now. New Fair is built on top of Old Fair, but Old Fair is not locked like location wise. Like there is no set map of what Old Fair is under New Fair. They really left it to the game runners that would step in to be like, put things from like this like ancient site wherever you need them to be for the story to work well. And I think that that is a phenomenally cool choice that takes a lot of pressure off a GM to be like, okay, we have to be here because if I want to do something with that cool thing, I have to make sure that you're like on top of it. So how are you going to, so there's something very cool in the interplay between spaces and how liminal Old Fair feels and how like exciting and frontier like the edges of New Fair feels. That like that's my favorite, the intersection of those like stranger places.
It's not a spoiler for our story, I think, but I also, one thing that I like in the book and just the way you talk about Old Fair and what's down there, it leaves it up to a game runner to sort of it gives hooks and it gives like inspiration, but it allows you to run amok with it. I feel the same way about I feel like there's a really cool skeleton for what the recent history of Old Fair is, and the triumvirate, which is the ascendancy, the primacy, and the periphery, which are the police, the government.
Look at my little lore boy. Look at that.
I'm looking forward to future chapters too of Candela that we do as part of the channel, because I want to see the current day society and like the last 15 years and its effects on this freeze frame moment in time, or this decade or 20 years, because it allows you, there's wiggle room for where you put your stuff, to see that fleshed out more. Because right now it's like there's a history section and there's a page on each of those things, but I look forward to seeing stories become part of our galaxy of history for this place.
I got two questions I think you can answer. Liam, do you want to GM a Candela chapter?
I would love to. I will. It's a lot of plates to spin, but yeah. I mean, I think it's up my alley. I haven't done it as much in a while. I mean, we have like a one shot coming out now, but I think a lot of people who followed along with CR from the beginning will remember the Liam's Quest stories that I did, which were weird.
So good. You're such a good GM.
Horror things. Oh, okay. You're sweet. You're such a good GM.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm gonna start it. I'm gonna start the hashtag to get you to GM. I want that badly.
I will fully support that. And then my next question, I'm hoping you can answer because it's going to be very open-ended. What is anything you can tease?
The thing I want to tease is just how far everyone was willing to push. And I think it is very cool especially when you have people that you haven't necessarily like played with. Like I had never played with Ashley Birch before this. I never met Nashir. Like, so there's something in the like, okay, you're brand new. I don't know what I'm going to get from you. I don't know what your comfort level with this is going to be, and I'm just going to take whatever you want to give and we're going to like heighten it and blow it up and like figure out how to get there. But everyone came in at a dead sprint in a way that's so fun. The thing if there's something I can tease, it is the idea that like there's this feeling, and maybe it's just a vibe that I have, but it's what I took away as I started like reading the book, that this world feels like a clock, and it feels like the more time passes, the more the tension rises in the world, and the more things get closer to big sort of eldritch horror ideas. So that idea that the passage of time yields like crazier results or heightened results. And I think everyone had that feeling coming in. So everything we built into this world, and that these like amazing players built into their characters, just comes out of the gate affected by the world in a big way. Like, I think that's the difference between like chapter 1, where we get to meet the world and meet like the beginning of the mysteries of this place, and chapter 2, where we talk about how like trauma and tragedy can inform and bleed and feed the monstrosity of this world. And there's something very cool about this chapter where everyone walks in the door and says like, at this point, and we are a little farther down the timeline than some of the other chapters are. That's the thing that we say, truly minute 2 of the thing. So I don't feel like I'm spoiling it. Again, Jeremy might chase this with a urgent email, like she's said too much, but we're a little farther down the timeline and everyone feels heightened in that way. And it's really cool to see who everyone is out the gate. Like, you're going to finish episode 1 and be like, oh, I didn't realize that's who everyone was. And it's very cool. It's very, very cool. And I'm excited.
The hype for the table is real. There is some fucking pathos at this table in ways that exceeded my expectations. Sam Riegel taking a very serious turn. If you're familiar with his work, still Sam, but really interesting thing to watch. Nashir is someone that I actually recommended for our stuff a ways back, and because I've gotten to know him through voiceover and video game work, and boy, he far exceeded my expectations. Holy shit,
he's so good. Yeah. Sorry,
but really the whole table just brought it, and thanks to that session 0, I felt attached to all these people and characters from the jump. So it's a good time. It's a good time.
I love it. Well, I would love to talk to you both after the show so we can actually get into details on things.
Okay, we'll follow.
Yeah. The most fun, vague interview ever.
We said so little, but with great enthusiasm.
Yeah, with so many words.
I love it. I love talking to you guys. Candela is so good. I cannot wait for this chapter. It's time for Aabria to traumatize me again, and I'm here for it.
They call me Trauma Mama. Let's go.
Get in line.